What is up, everybody? Welcome to Reason 13 at ADE. We're going to get this party started.
That's right. My name is Trovarsi, and I'm a live modular techno artist. I use hybrid setups, and I'm a composer. I live in Los Angeles. I'm based there. And yeah, I've been doing this for a number of years now, so the setup is always evolving, and we'll get into what it is today. So
Yeah. My name is ALX106. That's my artist name. My name is Alex, and I also am a live artist. I also am a producer, DJ, all of the things, but primarily perform with modular synthesizers in one way or another. Trovarsi and I have been playing live as a duo for the past 3-4 years now.
Wow.
Whenever we can make it happen, which is super fun. So we don't live in the same cities, and we don't even live in the same state. And so we sometimes we send stuff back and forth when we're producing stuff. But for the most part, we show up, maybe get 10 minutes in a hotel room to make sure things work, and then we go out and play. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we're doing that and how we're using Reason 13 as a plugin in order to do that.
All right. So yeah, Reason 13. It's been a number of years now.
Yeah, it's been 30 years.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, I mean, I know you started off using it it's been a number of years.
Yeah, it was really Reason
something.
was my introduction to electronic music, really, as far as creation goes. When I was in college and I'd been playing in bands forever, and then I played piano and things, and I wanted to learn how to do electronic music, and I didn't even know you could plug a keyboard into a computer and make a keyboard sound at this time. It was oh my gosh. And then I took an electronic music course at school, and Reason was the first thing that we got to do. So I was oh my gosh, this all looks like hardware. It looks familiar, but stuff that I'll never actually be able to own. This is so cool. And now I'm using that still along with this. Back in the day, you had to do it with Rewire if you wanted to record it to Pro Tools, and now it is a fully fledged DAW, but you also can use it as a VST.
Which is where I can't come in, and that was my experience getting into Reason. Not only using it as standalone, but also being a person that uses multiple DAWs like Logic, Ableton, Bitwig. In that case, that's what we're using today. It just opens the world for everyone to have an opportunity to try it in different arenas that way. So today, that's how I have it set up, which that's what we'll get into.
Yeah, we'll talk about the new stuff real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and new and, oh yeah, go ahead.
Ripley, absolute favorite.
Yeah.
Delay, reverb, combo. We'll show you a little bit of details on that.
Mm-hmm. And then Polytone is a cool synthesizer. It's a dual layer 2 oscillator synth. It's basically CS80 in a box, and you can do lots of cool sound design stuff with it. And then the upgraded browser has just been huge for me, because you can just straight up go in and search your entire computer for anything that might have tags. So it's I want to clap, boom, go there, grab it, and you can grab stuff from all over the place, as well as all of your packs. So it's super easy to get around now.
All right, so let's kind of get into the setup. Why don't you start with your...
You want me to start? Okay.
Yes, please.
It's not like we planned it or anything. So basically I'm using, like I said, I'm using a little bit of Eurorack, and one of the reasons why we both are going into this hybrid setup is to save space. We used to play together with we each had two of these kind of stacked up. And
12U.
So 12U is what that's called, worth of modular. And so now I'm in 6U of 84 HP, she's in 6U of 104 HP. And so being able to shrink it down has been really nice. And so in order to do that, I've offloaded my sequencing into the Oxy 1 sequencer here. And so this is my main sequencer, doing pretty much all of it in here. And so I've got my drums channels here, and the drums are actually going to be our sequencing things, instrument inside of the computer, because that saves me a lot of space that way. And then I've got the modular for other voices. So on my computer here, if we go into the drum channel, you can see I have this instrument selector here. And what's nice about that is I can basically have 3 different racks set up. And so right now, like my focus, you can see, is going to be these 4 top channels when I'm playing with her, because she covers the drums, and we'll go over that a little bit more later. But I do have some drums in here just for my own reference when I'm jamming by myself, right? And so in these, I can choose these different drums and just get different sounds with the same sequence, which is really nice. And so for that, I'm using the Reason rack, and you can see I've got the drums here. And one thing I love about these is they have LFOs. You can route to pretty much anything. So if we go up here, it looks like I'm clicked on the one we're not hearing. So we'll go back to that. And so you can see I've got a mixer up here. And if I wanted to, what's cool about Reason, you can see we've got a really familiar interface here. But if I flip the rack over, you can now see we've got the backs of the devices as well. So I'm using this mixer just as a send and return. What's cool is I could split these out to separate outputs, and I could have all the different drums going out here and then have synths on all of them if I wanted to. But, just a single one is nice for this. And then I've got 2 sends and returns here. You can see one's going through a filter, then a delay. One's going, I'll flip the rack so you can see them. So we've got a filter and a delay, and one's reverb. So this is the filter with the delay. And then over here we've got the reverb with a little bit of sidechain, a little bit of EQ to just make it sound better. So bring in the kick. We've got a little thing. Maybe I'll mute the clap because that's not what we want, right? And then I've got the EQ, so in case I accidentally do turn this kick on, it doesn't go through, so that way we just get less stuff there. And then moving on, I've got a Bastel pizza for bass. So a lot of times for this kind of stuff, I'll just leave this bass really low. But one of the fun things about it is I can just change the timbre super quick, just on the panel. And then running it through some effects is a fun way to go with that. I'm not hearing my sends right now, so I will have to fix that in a little bit. But then, over here we've got the Legion voice. And so this is the next one. This is usually my just kind of like weird sounds voice. And a lot of times it's just like I just kind of run something like this. And again. See if I can find my chain here. What's going on? My routings might be. Let's go to the master. Might have to come back to show you your stuff.
All right, I'll jump over here.
Yeah, cool.
All right, so just taking a look at my setup right here, I'll kind of walk you through the signal flow first. So I'm more hardware heavy, and we'll get into the effects of how they're run through the computer through Reason. But I have 2 Digitac 2s. So on the second channel here. So I mainly do a lot of drums and those core elements that carry the undertone of the techno beats of the percussion. On this one, I tend to duplicate the project, and then that way if there's something that I want to accentuate in that specific pattern, because how I work on the Digitac is I don't chain patterns, I create different ideas per pattern, and then I use different banks for different styles of music. So this gives me the opportunity to either pull up just a specific track, like this one is just going, and play with it, affect it, turn the knobs and see what other timbres I can get, or I will pull up a completely different pattern and then use that as a transition, and we'll show you that a little bit later. And you can see I have a delay on a delay, but I go delay into a phaser. I'm using the Ripley delay, and then I have a little bit of LFO, and I have 2 compressions on there just because, I'm sure you know, that modular effects can get kind of wild, so anything to kind of help control that a little bit. And I'll let you kind of hear what that sounds like. So if I open this up, pull that. So that's just like a boring, dry sound. So now it's running, this oscillator that you first heard is now being routed through those effects that I'd mentioned earlier on that chain. So that's why it's going in and back out to this channel. So, and then just to kind of show you here how I set that up, it's just, now you can see this, how the effect is metering right here. That is also being routed into the ES9. And then I have an aux send on the hardware mixer in my rack. And so that's why I'm able to control it from the hardware right here. So the reason why I did that is, I love this mixer. The reason why I play live is using having this tactile control, this immediate, and also to carry one less MIDI controller. It kind of kills a lot of birds with one stone. So you kind of pull that for a second. How are we on time? We're good?
We're going good. I'm back. I got my stuff, so I can talk.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I might as well just finish.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, you should. Absolutely. Just saying, whenever you're ready.
Okay, cool. And then I have, let's see, what here? I have this other effect. Let's see, where is it at? So we'll kind of turn that back on. So just kind of give you a little reference. And then this still gives me the opportunity to use the master that I mentioned earlier and just kind of wash things out. And for me, it's just like getting these weird little tones going and then playing with reverbs and delays and see if you can get some sort of polyrhythm thing moving and just kind of have it naturally move in the room and just listen and turn knobs. Like, mainly I like to turn knobs here, okay? Like that. So anyway,
It's pretty obvious. Yeah, just to keep going, just like a little bit more on my setup. So I had this sound that was getting really annoying, right here. And then we just add the Ripley delay on there. Maybe turn the filter down a little bit. And then I wanted to show this send really quick because it's literally nothing. It's just the Ripley. And so the cool thing about this guy, I mean, there's so many cool things. But we've got the digital section here, which I have an LFO routed to the rate. So that's why we're just getting a little bit of movement in that sample rate reduction. We've got some noise in there just to dirty it up. We've got a tiny bit of distortion. And then the ducker is really cool because this basically says when the signal's happening, the delay is going to get ducked down and then come back up when the signal's not there. So therefore, it doesn't just get in the way. I could set this up to have like more control over it, but I actually just like the set and forget feeling of this one. Just turn it on. Sounds pretty good. And then we've got this reverb over here. And the reverb is... And then I've got this switch here for this pulverizer that I can turn on, and I didn't plug that in yet, so we're just going to do it manually. But we get this just kind of cool filtering sounds over the reverb first, and then again the sidechain tool just to pump it a little bit. So this is just another really nice texture, and when we've got both things rolling, like this stuff going, maybe a kick drum. It's really nice, cool textured stuff like right away. And when we're playing together, it's a lot of fun for me to just kind of like make atmospheres on top with just one note, you know? It's like I'm not sequencing anything. It's just a And it's boring when it has nothing going on, but when the effects are on, it's pretty cool. And then the last thing I wanted to show real quick was my Reason channel. So again, I'm using the Bitwig instrument rack, which I just love to be able to go through different sounds. And so I've got this guy here, which is the grain. So if I just go into the keyboard mode over here on number 3, I can just play something and turn it up. So this is just like some weird sustained ride. So this is like cymbal scratches. And that just goes going through reverb and delay, just a nice extra texture. And then we've got this next one is the first thing that you heard. And so that's this like old school movie style of making just like really big impact moments of just taking a trumpet sample on like an old school sampler. We've got a little bit of distortion, and then again its own reverb so it can have its own thing. And then that's just like you pitch down a trumpet and you have immediately Terminator 2 coming after you.
My favorite.
And then, yeah, I've got a pitch bend on this guy, which I just figured out a little bit ago, which I'm excited about. So I can really go for, like, that Titanic. And it's just this, like, huge cinematic sound that we can use at big input, like, at big drop, like, breakdown moments. So we go high pass some stuff out, get some big moments going on there, and just add a bunch of tension with something like that. Next one, more tension. This is like a drone that I made on the SB1200, or on the 2600, the ARP 2600. And then it's just running in the grain again. This is like, I love this grain thing. This grain plugin, and then a little bit of distortion, and then into its own Ripley again. So that way I don't have to think about it. I can just hit some buttons and just make some really big moments happen. And it just sounds so cool. And then the last thing is just like a little bass line. So if I want to program just like a super simple bass, then at that point, that's where I turn off the effects and like, just play something like that, loop it, let it go. Yeah, I mean, I can.
So do you want to talk a little bit about just playing together and some transitions, or?
Yeah, so I mean, like, do you talk about this while I was freaking out inside of the computer?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I gave the signal routing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the next thing is pretty much just like how we play, and like one of the first things that we like to do is just kind of clear the air. It just depends on really who we're playing with, when we're playing, what time, all of that. But a lot of times, you know, it's like just mixing into somebody as a live artist can be a little bit of a shock, or just sounds different, right? It's like I can always, as a DJ, I can always choose a track that sounds in line with whatever else is going on. But as a live artist, it might just, you know, you might have a little bit of a different sound. So starting out with just something like this guy has been good for us. Let me see. There we go. And so this is, again, just a big drone that I made. And it's nice to just kind of like say, like, okay, this is us now. Like, we're starting. We are taking over, and then we can kind of hear how loud the subs are, how loud everything is, and we can kind of get ourselves ready, you know, like I think I turned this on, took my sweatshirt off, accidentally took my shirt off behind the DJ booth. That was super fun at our last show. But then, yeah, now you explain what your next step is.
And at this point, I'm typically thinking like, okay, how do I want to start to introduce the percussion? And it depends on the show. Like sometimes we'll just go for it and just go all in. But you know, a lot of times we'll just kind of build that tension, let that.
This is filtered out right now, like high pass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll let that go maybe a little bit.
By the way, this drone is like 7 minutes long and it's looped, so it's just like, just let it go.
So we can work it in, and so maybe we'll bring in some
okay, I'm gonna start taking the drone out, right? So I can do that on my launch pad, but I just had my hand here, so we're just gonna pull that out. And now that when that's gone, that's like, okay, now we're partying. So it's like, I might need to bring in that bass line. We're having, I don't know if Link is on right now. Here we go. Bring this down a little bit. And now we've got a nice little bed under there. Rather than like going crazy with the modulation, it's just like get down there and just have a nice little bed down there for the bass. And then at this point, it's like, cool, when do we want to do breakdowns? And this is a lot of like just talking to each other as well as just
Kind of
intuition.
feeling it. Yeah.
Being able to just do a filter out. Like, so we got high pass here, so we can just take filter out. I guess I have to assign it. I don't use this one too often. So this way, like that. So I like to do these things sometimes. I like to do the filtering every once in a while. And then she has her own side too to do it. And so it's really fun to like, if I'm working over here and she starts filtering it out, then it's like, all right, cool, I know a build's happening. I'm gonna start just like adding a bunch of reverb and delay to everything that I have and just start building something up a ton. And then like usually look over, sometimes we'll count, but most of the times you'll just feel it. And then it's like, cool, just drop everything out. And sometimes like the biggest moment you can have is when you go from something big to something small. You know, it's like trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger is really tough. So a lot of times it's just like good to just, oh, cool, take that out. Now we're in there and we're rolling. With each other and as well with the crowd. So it's always good just to like remember to look up and see how people are feeling. And a lot of times we do some big like left turns where we go, you know, like we don't really stick in just the 4 on the floor techno the whole time. A lot of times we'll go into like an electro breakbeat or just go into like halftime just to kind of clear the air again and just kind of like let people know like we're still going, we haven't forgot about you, we're doing something new. But we try to do that pretty quick because then as soon as we get back into that party zone, everybody's like, it's a good hype moment. So it's always fun to just kind of see what happens with that.
I think you pretty much summed it up, yeah. Yeah, I think we should take questions.
All right, so since we have both microphones, we're not going to be passing any mics around, but if anybody has any questions about the setup, the philosophy, anything like that, feel free to just raise a hand and then let us know, and then we'll try to keep it, like, we'll repeat the questions so we know what's up. So go ahead.
Question about the kick voice, like how is kick generated, or was it like a module or a sample, or was it kind of like, it's really nice.
Oh, thank you. So for my kicks, I take a 909 and process it, put it back in and into the Digitact. And then for my core sounds, I sit with a mastering engineer and just really sit and listen with everything, and just in a different studio, getting a different vibe, a second opinion from somebody that's their main thing, you know, and making sure that all of my core sounds I know will sit nice in the club, because you never know where you're going to play. You're playing on all types of systems, so for me that is like a great like starting point to know where I can mix in the modular, because that's more improvised, and depending on the effects it can get loud and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you're welcome. Any other?
Got a question back there. Belt it out.
Latency?
So yeah, latency. Do we deal with latency? Everybody deals with latency as soon as you bring a computer into the mix. Pretty much anything. We've found, we found that with the newer computers, when I got an M2, I feel like I just kind of was able to do what I thought I could do for the past 10 years. So it's like, I've dealt with latency forever, as far as 2013 MacBooks and a 2017 MacBook, all that. I got an M2. Yes, there is latency still, but it's much more manageable. And then just like the way the offsets work made me feel just much better about that. So one of the things is with all the Reason plugins that we're using and things like that, we don't really deal with plug-in latency as far as delays and things for the effects that we're using. That stuff is processed totally fine with all of the computer stuff. So that's been totally good. As far as syncing things and running them back in, you're running things in and back out. Mm-hmm. We have to rely on offsets a lot, but using Bitwig as the DAW has been great for that, because they have basically each thing you have synced to MIDI can be offset.
Time shift.
Yeah, and then you have time shift as well as in the audio realm. So you have lots of options to be able to do that.
I was just going to say, yes, time shift, and also thinking about if you are sequencing outside of the box, if your sequencer has that ability to dial back with the milliseconds, just for example, even with the Vector and with the Digitax, it has, the Vector has an option to send the clock right on the time, or you can have it pre-roll. So that way, if you're launching a preset, typically it'll wait. If you miss it, it'll wait and run through your pattern before it lands on the one to start it. It has that ability, so it kind of helps with that too. Mm-hmm.
Horizon volume may vary. How do you use limiters? Not to kill the dynamics, but also not to kill the sound system. What do you limit and how?
Just so to repeat the question and to make sure I heard you. So you're asking, how do we use limiters, and if we use limiters, and also keep the dynamics? For me, for the channels that I'd mentioned earlier, my 4 voices, I put a limiter that I use the Bitwig peak limiter, and I don't. I think you.
It's not touching anything, right? It's just in case,
Yeah,
it goes
I use
over.
Just in case it goes wild, it just kind of clamps it down. I typically stay away from using any limiter any more than that, just because it could start, just for the fact that I'm using things in the box as well as hardware. I don't want it to start limiting something unless I'm using it creatively. Yeah. Right? Oh, okay, cool.
Right on.
Are we done? Oh, well, that went faster than yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
oh.
We got to do it. We got to do like. Yeah, they're saying
No,
we got to
cut
be
it.
done. We
Okay.
got to be done. They've
Yeah.
been telling me for 2 minutes.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you learned something.
Yeah, huge. Give it up for Reason. Thank you so much, Reason, for having us. We're super stoked to be here. And everyone, please exit now because we have to set up the venue for the next.